Saved by Paris Hilton, parenting on drugs, on the run in Mexico. When the tables turn on a pornographer, you know things will get wild. This is the shady side of Girls Gone Wild creator Joe Francis. Although Joe Francis made a career out of exposing women's bodies, he's insisted that he's done so legally, getting the women's signed consent for their participation in Girls Gone Wild. However, in the documentary Girls Gone Wild Exposed, a woman named Janelle claimed that Francis had sexually assaulted her on his tour bus after picking her out in a club. As she explained in the documentary,
"He basically just forced himself on me, and it hurt. I didn't give my consent that night."
This isn't the first time Francis has been associated with sex crimes. In 2003, he was arrested for child pornography for reportedly filming underage girls engaged in sex acts. He was arrested again in 2007 on sexual battery charges for allegedly groping a woman. Then in 2008, Francis pleaded no contest to child abuse and prostitution after an underage girl said he forced her to touch his privates. In 2009, Francis was accused of sexual assault when a woman told the Los Angeles Times that he had pressured her into sex on his tour bus. He threatened to sue, having never been formally charged for the assault. He's also apparently displeased with the 2022 documentary, writing on his Instagram, "Every issue and accusation has been fully litigated. I was either found to be innocent or the victim of all of these terrible accusations." Joe Francis has definitely had money troubles over the years. His wallet took a major blow in 2013 in particular, when his company Girls Gone Wild filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. At the time, Francis had owed $10.3 million to Steve Wynn for a casino debt and was being sued by two other women for issues relating to Girls Gone Wild. However, he apparently didn't comply with the terms of his bankruptcy case, and by 2015, there was a warrant for his arrest when he didn't turn over two cars. Francis decided to flee to Mexico, seemingly to avoid paying his debts, as well as more jail time. As of April 2022, he was still living in Mexico, but had since sold Girls Gone Wild to a pornography company. Francis now runs a luxury estate called Casa Aramara. While a judge ruled in 2017 that he couldn't profit off that business until his debts were paid, he still gets a lot of celebrities to vacation there. And although 20% of the estate was lost in a 2020 fire, TMZ reported that Francis is somehow dropping over $1 million to repair it. Joe Francis's ex, Abby Wilson, probably has some bad things to say about him, considering the two clearly didn't part on good terms in 2020 after 12 years together. The U.S. Sun reported that, following their split, Wilson accused Francis of purposely trying to infect her with the COVID-19 virus by spitting in her face when he was infected. During that same altercation, she claimed he violently assaulted her, pulling her to the ground and stepping on her head. Though Francis went to jail for 73 days over the incident, he was released after agreeing to attend therapy. Wilson also accused him of physically assaulting her again and threatening to release explicit videos of her as revenge. Yet Francis told the Daily Mail that she made up the domestic violence accusations and bribed Mexican police. He even later accused her of theft, writing on Instagram, "She is also a fugitive of justice for stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars." Joe Francis has made some questionable moves as a parent, especially relating to his nasty custody battle over twins Alexandria and Athena, whom he shares with his ex, Abby Wilson. According to the U.S. Sun, in June 2021, Wilson was granted emergency custody of the girls and a restraining order against Francis after accusing him of drug use and physical abuse. She claimed in court documents that he had threatened to take their children far away from her. She also said he would scream at his daughters, he would insult them. Despite Francis's fortune, Wilson indicated he was a deadbeat dad. She wrote on Instagram, "My ex has not provided financial support in over a year. He stole our home, all of our clothes, and personal belongings." Yet Francis has a different take, claiming that Wilson kidnapped his daughters. In April 2022, he wrote on Instagram, "Abby Wilson is currently wanted for the kidnapping of Alexandria and her sister by Mexican authorities." He also claimed that she was hiding his daughters with her alleged drug trafficker boyfriend. However, her lawyer told the Daily Mail, The kidnapping claim is just ridiculous. If someone physically hurts you, you move out and you don't give them your address. Joe Francis has done multiple stints in jail for various reasons. For example, in 2007, he served time for intimidating 2 women who brought a lawsuit against him during the negotiations of a civil case. He was also charged with criminal contempt twice, seemingly for his disrespectful attitude.
Wow.
Most notably, though, in 2013, he was sentenced to 270 days in jail after he was convicted of false imprisonment, assault, and dissuading a witness. The charges stemmed from an incident in 2011, where Francis wouldn't let 3 women leave his home following a night of partying. One victim said he physically attacked her, bashing her head onto the floor. Francis didn't take his conviction well, telling The Hollywood Reporter,
"Just because a jury is mentally and jealous of who I am, that jury, you should be put in jail, you stupid idiots."
He later apologized for his outburst, but tried justifying his comments, saying in a statement, "Anyone who has ever been wrongfully convicted of a crime would be as frustrated as I am." In 2015, Francis was sentenced to jail again, pleading no contest to child abuse and prostitution charges after Girls Gone Wild featured underage girls. Despite his plea, Francis told the Los Angeles Times, "I never committed any crime. A few corrupt individuals were able to keep an innocent man in jail." In terms of shadiness, it's worth mentioning that Joe Francis seemingly made a whole career out of exploiting others. Not only did he get his start on a TV show called Banned from Television, which usually displayed real people's graphic deaths, but Girls Gone Wild basically made Francis rich off mostly inebriated girls. Girls Gone Wild exposed filmmaker Katinka Newman explained to the New York Post, "Behind the fun, the wet t-shirt competitions, and the faux feministic liberation centered around flashing her breasts in front of a camera, lives were being ruined." Francis was also notoriously nasty to the women who took legal action against him, even once serving jail time for verbally harassing 2 women during a civil case's negotiations, according to the New York Times. In a different case, he infamously asked a woman on the stand who was suing him for filming her when she was underage if she was a prostitute. Even after being sentenced for child abuse and prostitution in another trial, Francis unapologetically told reporters, "I'm going to go back to making videos."
Big fan of the Girls Gone Wild videos.
Girls Gone Wild. I just succumbed to the advertising, I guess.
In 2004, Joe Francis was the victim of an over-the-top kidnapping and extortion plot, and unsurprisingly, the situation was pretty crazy. It all started when he returned to his Bel Air home one night to find a masked man with a gun. The intruder tied Francis up and stole some of his belongings before demanding more money, which Francis didn't have in the house. Seemingly to ensure he paid up and stayed quiet, the intruder forced Francis to make a degrading video of himself in sexual positions. According to an NBC News story about the incident, Francis recalled, "He's holding a gun and a camera and making me say things." From there, he was thrown in the back of his own car and driven to another location, where the suspect threatened to release the tape if he wasn't paid a ransom. Francis went on to work with police, making several attempts to arrange a money drop-off to catch his attacker. Eventually, a famous socialite cracked the case, having heard things on the party circuit. Per NBC News, Francis dished, "Paris Hilton was at a party with me, and she pulled me aside, and she goes, 'Look, I know who did it.'" The attacker was later identified as Darnell Riley, who pleaded guilty to robbery and attempted extortion. He blamed the mob for his actions, telling Page 6, "I was asked to rough him up. I worked with guys. If they told you to do something, you don't ask questions." Joe Francis has been accused of a lot of questionable things over the years, and in 2021, one of those things was that he was addicted to drugs. While fighting for custody of their 2 daughters, Francis's ex, Abby Wilson, claimed in court documents that the Girls Gone Wild founder had been abusing hard drugs since 2017. Wilson had contended that the drugs made him abusive towards her and the twins. The court documents revealed Joseph's behavior continued to become more violent, and he never left his addiction to drugs. Of course, Francis denied the accusations, explaining to Page 6, "My ex-girlfriend just keeps making up things and lying and lying and lying. I have to defend myself." He even accused Wilson of being the one who uses drugs, telling the Daily Mail in 2022 that she lives with her drug dealer boyfriend and uses fentanyl. Frances told the Daily Mail, at the height of the non-vaccinated part of the pandemic, she was heavy into using of these drugs. Wilson, meanwhile, has denied this. Whether Frances is actually an addict or not, he's been linked to drug use before. In 2007, People reported that he was charged with possessing prescription pills during one of his prison stints. So with all things considered, it's pretty clear that Frances has one heck of a shady side. Yet, it keeps the entrepreneur in the headlines, even if it's usually for all the wrong reasons. If you or anyone you know has been the victim of sexual assault, help is available. Visit the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network website or contact RAIN's National Helpline at 1-800-656-HOPE.